Hi, and welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon, and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and the best-selling author of the book Your Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news, TV, or social media, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. So here today we have Deanna Bryant, and we are going to talk about how to adjust to the empty nest. Hi, Deanna.
Hi, Sophie. Glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Deanna Bryant. I am a midlife marriage strategist. I live in the southeastern United States, in the state of Tennessee, in the South. And I am one of those that have gone through the empty nest.
Mm-hmm. So, tell us about that. What is the empty nest, for starters?
Well, the empty nest, it's called empty nest syndrome. It sounds like a disease, doesn't it? But really, it's a phenomenon where couples can go through extreme sadness and grief after the children leave. They can, go through an identity crisis. They can have no idea what to do with their time anymore. They can be lonely. And it can be sad not to be caring for your children anymore. And, of course, it can affect a marriage.
And one of the things I recall, I had a lady who was a stay-at-home mum. And when the second child went, it was quite literally, I'm not needed anymore.
Absolutely. See, I was a stay-at-home mom too. And so while my husband has had his own adjustment, it has not been as profound as it has been for me, because my whole identity has been the children. I was, their mom. I was their nurse, their caretaker, their tutor. I mean,
taxi.
Yeah, taxi. I was everything to them. Granted, as they get closer to leaving, that's not so much. But yeah, it's kind of a loss of, now what am I going to do? I do think as they become teenagers, it kind of prepares you a little bit, but not completely.
No,
it's not completely.
It's gone.
Well, just seeing their faces every day, having them for meals, hearing them walk around in the house. I mean, it gets really silent. And, that's when you get a dog.
Yeah. Interestingly, I know it's completely different, but my dad passed away suddenly in February, and he was really noisy. Right, even if I was on the phone to my mum, I could hear when he came home because he was that noisy. And I think this was the hardest thing, to be in that house. And there is no noise. There is no one, like, it was also very clumsy. So things used to fall over quite a bit. And it's just that emptiness that reinforces the absence.
It does. It's that silence and that, I'm kind of alone. And as a stay-at-home mom before COVID hit, I was home alone. My husband's going off and he's going to work, and here I am. What am I going to do now? So I'm having this whole identity crisis. Who am I? What is my life purpose now? I have no idea. I didn't even know what my needs or thoughts were. All I could think is, I really miss them because they were my companions I spent the most time with.
Yeah.
So, and now they're gone, and it's tough.
So,
but that changes.
Exactly. How does that change?
Well, what I think is important to do is to allow yourself to grieve. Just allow yourself to feel it. It's okay. Accept it. It's a part of the transition. And I would say to husbands just don't have it quite the same as women do. But if you're a husband, not to try to fix it.
Yeah.
Or try to tell a spouse, you shouldn't be feeling this way. The kids will be around. That's not what you need to do. you need to really accept it and be supportive. I think too, I went through some depression, but it wasn't clinical depression.
Yeah.
But some women do go through that. If you're grieving for more than a few months and it's, you're not getting out of bed, you've got lethargy, you're crying all the time, you need to get help.
That time of the emptiness kind of is often around the menopause as well, isn't it? So it's kind of a double whammy.
Exactly. It really is. Sometimes couples get married early and the kids are out before you hit menopause. For me, I didn't get married till late and didn't have my first child till 30. So yeah, I'm in the thick of it. So you've got all these emotions going on, and it's hard to, and the feeling of feeling like you're getting older, and your life is passing by, and now what am I going to do with myself? And so for me, what I had to do was allow myself to grieve and get through it. And then I had to say, I've prepared these kids. I have sent them out into the world, and I'm proud of them, and they'll do fine. Even if they weren't doing fine, I would have to let go and allow them to just mess it all up. But then I had to look at myself and go, okay, so what does this next half of my life look like without kids? But I had this really grandiose idea when my kids were younger, and it was really bad days. I'm like, oh God, I can't wait till they get older so I can have some free time. Very grandiose, because it was very different when everybody started leaving. So the reality and the fantasy could be very different. So I encourage moms that kids are getting ready to leave to definitely consider some of those things. But I also got support from other people. I would say get with other empty nesters.
When the kids are born, you meet other mothers with babies. And when they're born, you meet other mothers without babies.
That's exactly right. It's like you go through this transition, but that's such a good support group, to be with other women that have gone through it. If you're hanging out with women who have these little kids, it's probably just going to make it worse. Now, some women, go through midlife and have that emptiness syndrome. And something that can be done that's dangerous is then once you have grandkids, you repeat it. And then you become a grandparent, and then everything is focused on your grandkids, and that becomes your identity. That's where you're spending all your time. And that's not healthy either. No. But I see it happen.
I see it a lot.
Yeah. And you have to be careful. And that's something I don't want to do. I want to be like, keep my distance and allow my kids to raise their families. And I'm not going to be a constant babysitter. I don't want to get back into that. I've raised my kids. Now it's your turn. I'll be back up. I'll, when I want the kids, I'll get the grandkids. But other than that, you're raising them. I'm not. I've already gone through the empty nest. I'm not going through it again, which is something my mother did. My mother she transferred her mothering to us, to the grandkids, and now they're all older. She's just going through it all over again.
So how does it affect a marriage then?
Oh, absolutely. It affects a marriage because, again, when you get together, you're face to face, totally focused on each other.
Yeah.
And you have kids, and suddenly you're shoulder to shoulder, and your life becomes reactionary. You're reacting to everything going on.
And interrupted.
Interrupted constantly. I remember my husband and I decided that, for 15 minutes every night when we had younger children, we were going to sit on the couch and just talk. Our kids stood at the doorway screaming and hollering. They couldn't even make it 15 minutes for us to just talk. And so what happens is you don't talk, and it's not that couples don't care about the relationship. It's just that everything else takes precedence. So now the kids are gone. So what can happen is, especially for a grieving mother, she can pull away from the relationship altogether. And then the man feels even further left out. But also it can cause the spotlight to be shined on the marriage.
Yeah.
And now what's next? And it's kind of, what we were talking about, retirement. You're with each other, but you're not with each other all the time. Usually You've got a husband still working when the kids leave the empty nest, because a lot of times you're putting kids through college, and they are out on their own in college. And a lot of times women will go back to work, return to careers, or do something part-time and volunteer. But still, that's okay. We come home together and it's quiet. What do we talk about now? We've been talking about the kids. When we used to date, my husband and I used to date, we would end up talking about the children on dates. And, you've got to revitalize that conversation again, because if you've not been talking, not been communicating what's going on with you, it's been you go your way, I go my way, or we're going the kids' way, then the spotlight's back on you.
Yeah. And you've got to create a new routine that actually is just about the two of you. And I suppose it's a bit like the dating process right at the beginning. You've got to kind of like recreate that. You get to know each other, I suppose.
Yeah. It's a time of re-exploration of each other. It's, I tell couples that are going through the empty nest to get curious about each other again. You think you've been married all this time and you just know everything about them. Well, you may know a lot, but your spouse has changed. And if you haven't talked about it while you're raising kids, this is a chance to become curious again.
Yeah.
To ask questions, to be a good listener, to, really get to know each other again and have those important conversations. And then discuss, what do we both envision from here in our relationship and life now that the kids are gone? What can we start doing? And also, it's a great time to bring back some of that romance, to start really dating again, to take trips without the children more. And it can be an awesome time for the relationship if the couples are saying, okay, let's rebuild something new. The spotlight's on us. Let's create something new.
And do you think, because obviously I get that when the kids are little, they are the priority. If you've got a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old, they really need you to look after them, clean them, feed them, whatever. But do you think that maybe some of the stuff needs to kind of happen whilst they're teenager and still at home to try and start the process of the future empty nest, for one of the better words?
Yes, I do. I think it's important for couples, especially mom, to begin pulling back and doing everything for the kids. Start getting them to do their own laundry. Start getting them to create some of their own meals. Have them start doing chores where you're not doing and meeting every need. And I think moms can do that sometimes. They're still treating their teenagers like their children, And I think it's so important to begin letting go, to allow your kids to have some autonomy, allow them to come and go. Don't guilt them when they're gone with friends all the time, just because you miss them, because you are trying to meet your emotional needs to your children. So I think there's this process of letting them go, giving them some autonomy, and not expecting them to be at the dinner table every night as a teenager. Allow them.
And I think that to a degree that's good for them anyway, because let's be realistic, we need to know how to work a washing machine at some point. But I think that I've seen this, not just back in the day, but recently, especially boys who go from mummy to wifey, quite literally, and they've never really had that period, because they've stayed at home longer, and then when they've met the girlfriend and been together a while, they move in together, so they haven't had that time of living on their own. But if you take it the other way and to the other extreme, I recall someone who lost his wife 5 years ago, and he was in his 60s, late 60s at the time, and he generally did not know how to use a washing machine.
Oh my goodness.
He didn't know how to do very simple things because she took care of all of it. And I think that, we forget that. We want to do it because we love the person, be it a teenager, your husband, whoever, But at the end of the day, you're not doing them any favors.
No, you're doing a disservice to yourself and them, because that's not healthy to be the caretaker. And sometimes I call that being, I don't sometimes, that's just codependency, because you are getting all your self-worth from what you are doing for others, instead of, I'm going to take care of me. You guys need to start taking care of yourself more.
Yeah.
And so I trained my kids early to do their own laundry. I didn't clean up their rooms for them. That was their job. I didn't clean their bathrooms. That was their job. And it helped me to be able to let go a little bit more. But, you know, it's interesting because I have realized my boys will let me do everything for them if I do.
Yeah.
My daughter, super independent. I mean, she's been blazing her own trail since she was 12 years old, you know, didn't want me to do stuff for her, just super independent. But it is a little different with boys.
I sometimes wonder with girls. I mean, I know that we're not raised like in the 40s where, you know, the woman has got a very traditional woman role and the man has got a very traditional man role necessarily. But I see with myself and with, as you say, other people, daughters, they normally very quickly think they know best and therefore we do it their own way, you know?
Oh, yes. I mean, definitely. My daughter knew best from the time she was 12 on. And she's in her 20s now, and she's at that stage now. And this is a joy after they leave. They mature and get out on their own, and suddenly we are the smartest people that they've ever known. You know, it comes around that, you know, they think they know everything, and then they get in their 20s and they're like, coming to us for advice and support. And that's the thing too. Letting go is important. Giving your kids autonomy once they go, not expecting them when they move out on their own to call you every day. You know, you not calling them constantly, you know, blowing up their phone because you need to hear from them. It's important to allow them to go, and, you know.
And I think it's also important to allow them to be them and not to take it as a rejection. I'll explain what I mean by that. I go back to said father who passed away suddenly earlier this year, and his death, because I've had to spend more time with my mum in that house, and it's made me realise that obviously I was brought up like them. They brought me up, so same values, same ways of doing things or whatever. And my mum kept on saying to me, we don't live the same way. We don't eat the same things. And I was thinking, no, we really don't. And, you know, to extremes. And she takes it as rejection. And I was like, it's not rejection. It's just that the way you do things suits you. It doesn't suit me. I know I also wonder how I've ended up with these habits because they clearly haven't come from you. But at the same time, it isn't a rejection that the child changes.
And that is it, is not being that judgmental parent or that parent that is still trying to micromanage the kids. You know, a kid makes a decision, or your adult child makes a decision, and you've got to put your 2 cents in, or they're making a decision. My rule of thumb is, unless they ask for advice, I don't give it. I just let them bounce it off with me. And then, you know, I was doing that with my daughter the other day. She was talking about her relationship with me, and I just sat there and she said, "You're not going to give me any advice?" And I said, "If you would like it, you need to ask for it. But no, I'm not micromanaging your life anymore." And I think that is important. And our kids do things differently. They even believe things differently. Like, my husband and I don't, I mean, not that say we don't cuss, but we don't cuss as much as our 2 grown children.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think, where did they learn this from? But then I accept it. Is that the worst thing that could happen? No, I really don't care. They're good people. It doesn't matter to me, because they are becoming their own people. And then, you know, my son went to college and decided this isn't for me. Well, I've been in academia all my life, and I had to go, okay, if that's not what you want to do, that's okay. This is your life. And I had to pull myself back, you know? So, yeah, there's truly letting go and allowing them to become their own people. They may raise their kids totally different than I have. That's okay. But I'm not going to sit in judgment of who they become, or they pull away. They'll pull away in adulthood if they feel like you're judging them and micromanaging their life.
Completely. And I think what people also need to remember, the empty nest is a phase. You can choose to embrace it in time, or you can choose to struggle through it and be a victim.
Exactly. You really can. You can be a victim, and you can sit around pining away for months and doing nothing with your life. Or what I did was I went back to work in my career teaching English at the university, and I did that part-time, and I did it for a while, and I thought, you know what? I think I want to do something different for my life. So I went back and went to school, and started my own business, started my own podcast. And suddenly, you know what? I'm not thinking about what I've lost all the time. I'm thinking about, oh wow, look at everything I'm doing. This is so much fun. I didn't know I could do all this because I've just been a mother most of my life, And it gives you a sense of purpose, and you've got to find your purpose outside of being a parent. It's just not healthy for your kids, and it's certainly not healthy for you.
Yeah, no, but unfortunately, quite a few parents, the kids have their lives.
Oh, absolutely. I know it was for my mother. Her kids were her life, and she just couldn't let go. I mean, and she's done it our whole lives. She's still trying to, you know, be in our lives all the time, and she wants us to call all the time. And if we don't have time, she's making us feel guilty about it, because she just hasn't been able to get her own life. And we've encouraged her, Mom, you're an artist, do your art. Mom, you can volunteer, get out there and volunteer instead of worrying about nobody calling you. So I think it's healthy for your kids to see you being healthy after they go, and having a life and doing something. I just think it's healthy for your kids to see that.
I think there's definitely probably a transition, shall we say, in the generations, for one of the better terms, because if you look back not that long ago, really, and even if you look like in developing countries, the kids were there to look after the parents. Once they were of working age, basically. Even if you go back to the caves, why did we reproduce originally? To have support in old age and be fed.
Absolutely.
I think it's only recent, really, that we're starting to think, okay, they're not just there for us. I didn't bring these kids up for my own benefit. They're allowed to have their lives too.
Absolutely. It has been culturally a lot of times where, like for me, my grandmother put all of her attention on her kids. Then my mom moved 4 houses down from her. And then my mom did the same thing. And it's this repeat pattern. And it's changed now.
Yeah.
Kids are expecting their parents to have a life outside of them. It's not, we're all living in the same town, we're all living on the same street, the parents are right there. Yeah, it's my kids will have to take care of me one day. And things will have to shift, and hopefully they'll remember the things I did for them and be willing to give back, because I haven't sucked them dry since they've left home.
Well, yeah, this is it, isn't it? It's funny how the role reversal happens.
The reversal does happen. And my husband, when his mom was aging, he did such a great job of caring for her. And my children noticed that, and they respected him for the way he treated his mother. And my I really think my kids will be able to do that for us, because I think it's been, you know, they've seen it, and, you know, we have a good relationship. Although we tell them we don't want to move in with them, just put us in a home, but they insist that's not going to happen. We'll see.
Yeah. I think it's also a hard one because back again, you go back just 20 years, it was very rare that people at work would say, I'm so sorry, I need to go. It's my mum, she's had the fall, or, you know, I need to go, it's my dad. And it has, you can see how with people aging and living longer, how much of an impact, you know, it's kind of like when you employ someone, either in the late 20s to mid 30s, you expect them to be off work regularly with kids being sick.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to the other side of the scale, you expect them to be off work with the parents.
Yeah, and it does.
To juggle all of it.
No, it really isn't. And especially, I think, because my kids were still at home and younger when my husband had to do this first for his mother. You know, it does, you reverse roles, and it's almost like you're raising children for the second time, because you're dealing with your parents.
Yeah.
And, you know, they're in decline and they need a lot. And, you know, so many midlife couples really struggle with the stress of it, of caring for them.
The thing I've noticed, not that I'm looking after my parents, so to speak, but although I say that, back in August, my mum broke her hip, so I had to emergency trip back to France.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just chuckling because I remember with my nan, obviously because of COVID at the moment, when we go in her home, she's 96, something like that. And when we go in her home, we're no longer allowed to receive us in the personal rooms. It has to be in the communal room to make sure distancing is a that we've got a mask or whatever. Anyway, my nan refuses to put a mask on. So it's always just hanging on her chin, right? Plus she doesn't put her ears in. So she regularly gets told off by the nurse. So I thought, I don't want the nurse to keep on coming, and because I feel bad as if, you know, I'm not controlling my nan, for one of a better word. So I was like, can you put your mask back on? And it was every 30 seconds, honestly. And she started having a right go at me because of me asking to like put the mask back on. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it so that you don't get told off. And then she's like, I can't hear you with my mask on. I said, no, that's because you didn't put your ears in. I've got nothing to do. But you're having this argument because obviously she's your nan, she's the elder, and I take it it's be the same with a parent. So she knows best. And you're like, no, you don't have that one.
Well, it's funny because parents can be as difficult as kids can be. Yeah. Oh, they can. They can pitch their temper tantrums. They can tell you, you're the child, you're not going to tell me what to do. They can be contrary. I liken it to being teenagers. They can just be contrary. And it's, you know, there's a lot of stress involved in that, because here you are trying to care for them and they're treating you still like a child. And yet, you know, you're there to help them.
Yeah, I know. But Deanna, we're getting towards the end of our time together. So what one piece of advice would you be giving to someone who's currently adjusting to the empty nest?
Allow yourself time, be patient and gentle with yourself. If you need to get help in the form of support groups, or, you know, friends, or even get into therapy to help you redefine your life, it's okay. But allow yourself to grieve, but get on with it. Don't sit in it. Begin to develop your new life so that you are living your best life, you know, and identifying yourself outside of that parental role.
Okay, well, Deanna, thank you so much for your time today. It was really enjoyable. And for everybody else, then I hope you enjoyed the show too. Please subscribe, leave us a review, but more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.